guys, it's Gamer Ahmer here. So today we're going to talk about some more of my rare and expensive video games that I have in my collection. Now, a lot of these games are actually some of my personal favorites in my video game collection, and these were actually not shown in my first video where I talked about my rare and expensive games in my collection. So this will actually be a part 2 of that series where I just have so many games that I haven't even found all of them. I tend to forget which ones are more expensive, and especially in today's market, it's very challenging to keep up with the prices of things. So today we're going to check out about 10 more with a few extras included in this video. So let's go ahead and check them out. So especially in my collection, it's often that I tend to pack some things away and I rotate things on display in my collection. So these items that you're about to see are actually several games that I forgot I even had for the longest time. So we're going to do this in a series where I talk about even more of my rare and expensive games in my collection. Some of these games are just personal favorites. Some I'm still looking to add for those systems and get the most expensive games out of the lot, some of the ones that are more fun to play, and some of these are just some oddballs that I have found along the way. So I wanted to share these with you guys, and especially in today's market where everything is just going through the roof with prices, it's pretty difficult to keep up on which games I already have, which ones just keep skyrocketing in price. So I'm sure that there are tons others that I have actually missed and did not include in this video. So stay tuned, as there will be a part 3 of this as well. So we'll just talk about some of these games that you see here. So first up, I have probably one of the more expensive games for the Nintendo GameCube. This is actually Cubivore. And of course it says survival of the fittest. So this is, just like it says right here, one of the most bizarre video games ever created. And that was by IGN. So this is a pretty wacky game. It says on the back, eat or be eaten. Assume the role of an animal in its early stages of evolutionary development. As your animal instincts take over, you will boldly traverse hostile environments and savagely stalk your prey to assert your place in the animal chain of power. So here it has these pretty bizarre looking creatures on here. They're made out of these cubes, as you call them, and this is just a wacky game that I've seen a lot of people play and enjoy. So this goes for at least $300 or so. I got it for less than half the price of it. So it even comes with this complete manual in here on how you actually control and play the game. And then of course we have this game disc. So this is definitely one to be on the lookout for. A lot of those GameCube games are actually skyrocketing in price because of the whole pandemic and everything going on. So I am so glad that I got this when I did, as now some of these games are going to be even more difficult to find, especially right now. And then next up we have a couple of these original Nintendo games. So these are some of my more so expensive games in my collection. I don't really have too many ultra rare Nintendo games. So this one we have DuckTales 2, and I actually got this for a great deal before it went up a little bit more in price. So this is one of those games that's a lot of fun, and it's still pretty reasonable in price. You won't generally spend more than a few $100s to get one of these. Of course, if you're going for a complete in-box copy, you're going to pay a lot more money than that. But I did get this DuckTales 2 in fairly good shape. The label and everything on here is pristine, and so is the back label. So this is just a really fun and classic game. I'm glad to have it in the collection. And then alongside that one, we actually have Jetsons Cogswell's Caper. And this is a great game. This is also up there in price. They're both probably around the same price, but these are actually getting harder to find, as I've seen tons of DuckTales 2 out there, but I haven't seen too many copies of the Jetsons. And this is another great game. So I actually got this one for an amazing deal. I couldn't pass it up. So both of these two games are probably more so some of the more expensive Nintendo games that I have in my collection. Of course, I'm always looking to grow that game collection, but it's just always hard to find games like this in great shape. A lot of the labels are generally messed up and there's tons of yellowing. So eventually I will add more, but these are my rare and expensive in my collection currently. Then of course we had to add this little Funko-Land sleeve. So this is definitely a classic, and this brings back so many memories of when we used to actually have Funko-Lands out there. So this is one of those dust sleeves that you could just put your game right into. And then on to some more Nintendo games in the collection. So we'll actually go over some of my Nintendo 64 games. Of course, in the last video, you would have known that I actually did my discussion on my Conker's Bad Fur Day press kit. That huge press kit that includes Conker's Bad Fur Day, the game, and then even my Clay Fighter Sculptor's Cut. So this one is probably along the next most expensive game. This is of course Super Bowling. So this one was actually pretty challenging for me to find. It was one of the last few games that I needed in my collection to complete the entire set of Nintendo 64 games. And I actually found it at a local shop. So that was just amazing, as I got a great deal on it. And this is just a bowling game, but it's one that's more so sought after among collectors, and it still holds its value today. And then some more Nintendo 64 games. So here we actually have this Super Mario 64 and this Wave Race 64. Now you may be thinking, why are these complete in box games rare and sought after and expensive? Well, these are actually particular variants that are for Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia only. So right here on these box arts, you'll actually see this little box that says that it's for Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia only. So these are pretty rare and sought after games if you're adding special variants that were only available in certain regions. So I actually scored these both complete in box. Of course they're not sealed, as I wanted to open up the game cartridges and see how they looked a lot different, and they do as well. So we'll just go ahead and open up one of these, as I have this protective sleeve on top of these. So when we open this up, of course it has the instruction booklet, which looks very similar. And then we have some extra precautions manual. And then it even has this little white tray in here. And then we have this copy of the game. So you'll notice right away that this looks very different than a North American copy of the game, because once again it has this little red box on here that says for Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia only. And then even the back looks a lot different. So this is way different than our regular versions of the game. If we just do a comparison, you'll notice right away that you could see a difference on here. Has some different markings and things like that on here. The print's even a lot different. It's a little bit smaller here, but larger up top. And it even says for Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia only right on the back there. So this is a really cool piece in the collection, and I was happy to actually add both of these copies for such a great deal, as the person must have found a whole carton of these games and just sold tons of the extra ones that he didn't need. So luckily he was able to share the wealth, and I could add one of these great copies in my collection. And then even some more Nintendo items. I didn't actually show this game off in the last video, which is very shocking because this one is a very expensive game. So this one you can expect to pay over $500 for if you're collecting it, and over $1,000 if you're trying to get it complete in box. I've seen these range up in price and go down a little bit, but sometimes you'll even pay upwards of $700-800 for this copy. So this one is in very great shape. The label is very nice. Doesn't look like there's any damage on here. So this is Hagane, which is a great game for the Super Nintendo. It's one that's very sought after for collectors, as this is actually a pretty challenging game to play on the system, and I had to add a copy in my collection because I found it for such a great price, and it's just really a neat piece to have in the collection. Figured I'd grab it before it went up in price. Not exactly sure if it will go up even more over time, but I got it for such a great deal that I can't complain. And then on to some more games. We actually have this cartridge version of Battlesphere for the Atari Jaguar, and this was actually sent to me as a gift. I actually did a whole separate video on that, and I am just so excited to have this one in the collection, as this is such a great game. I'll still have to get some gameplay of it. It does take a little bit to learn some of the controls on here, but this is one of the more so sought after games on the Atari Jaguar. They don't come up very often for sale, and when they do, they're several hundreds of dollars. And to go ahead and find one complete in the original box with everything included is just very difficult, as these are more so ones that just don't come up. So I was so lucky that a fan actually sent me this game along with several others, and this is one that I probably wouldn't have had for the longest time, as I still have not seen another one of these come up for sale, and I don't watch it very often on eBay, but I know that they don't come up very often, as I am still looking to complete my full set of Atari Jaguar games, and hopefully I can get some gameplay footage for you guys, as I actually have tons of great ones in the collection, and I only need just a few more to complete the entire game set. So this is one that I'm just so thankful for that I got from someone, and it's just a really great game, and it really is a notable game in my collection. Now on to this little game. So of course you may be thinking Game Gear. A lot of the Game Gear games aren't very expensive, but these Codemaster games still hold their value. There's only like a handful of these games, and this one is probably the most difficult one to find. So this is Pete Sampras Tennis. So this game right here, even though it's just a sports title, because it's this Codemasters style game, it has a different cart and everything, this one is very expensive. I just looked at it the other day. It went up to over $100 just for this little game loose without the box, the manual, everything else. So I actually scored this for, I want to say, around 20 some dollars a while back, and I'm just so thankful that I looked at the right time and found this game, as they are going for some crazy amounts of money. And I just need, I think, 2 or 3 more to complete the Codemaster set of the Sega Game Gear games, and eventually I'll try and get some complete in box, but I'm just going for loose ones right now. And then on to this game. So I can't believe that I forgot about this game when I made my first video on rare and expensive games. So this one is, of course, Rail Bout Special. So it's like your Fatal Fury style games. On the side it says Real Battle Action Game. So this is a fighting game for the Neo Geo, and this is the AES version, not the MVS version. So usually these games are very expensive. I know a local shop near me has Metal Slug 3 for over $1,000. So this is just a crazy expensive system to collect for. And I actually found this local to me at a pretty awesome video game flea market that as soon as they open up again, I want to get some footage and actually stop back in, as there are tons of items that I want there and tons that I will hopefully be able to buy shortly once things start opening up again. So this game is a really fun game. I got it when I bought my Neo Geo system, of course the AES version, and it actually came with this game. Now this was one of the more fun games that it came with, and of course everything is included in here. We have this huge cartridge, so they do take these large style cartridges. Of course the MVS ones are very similar, as they go right into the arcade machine. So this one is a pretty sweet, inexpensive game. And then it even comes with this instruction manual as well. And I just really like how these cartridge holders actually look. It says SNK in here. It's just a really cool piece that is very expensive. I've seen these sell for over $400 or $500 just for this particular game here. So to find this and to get it way less than that with the Neo Geo system is just insane. I'm so glad that I got a couple of the games when I did, as they are very expensive, very hard to find. Most of the time you have to order them online, as you don't find them very often, especially in video game stores. So luckily the set that I have, I think it's less than 10 games. I've actually found all of those local to me, and there are tons of places that still have some. I just try to get them complete in the box, as I think they're really great to hold the cartridge and everything, make sure they don't get beat up. And then next up we have this Sega Master System game. Now you may be thinking, why is Outrun for the Sega Master System an expensive game? That's just absurd. So this copy right here actually has a little bit of a story with it. So you may notice that you may have run across some of these blue labeled Sega Master System games over the years, and these are just a different variant, different style. It might have been a later release of this actual Outrun game. Well, I found this in a pretty cool video game store that I traveled to when I went to go pick up one of my Sega Dreamcast kiosks, and I actually scored this for a pretty decent deal. I've seen some of these blue variants complete in the box go for over $100, so this is just one of the cool ones that I have in my game collection, and it actually just makes me want to collect some more of these blue label cartridges as opposed to the red ones, because I think they look pretty neat, and they're definitely different in the game collection if you have a lot of the red ones as well. So this one is one that's a little bit more so sought after. It's a little bit more challenging to find, especially local, and I'm just so happy that I got it for the price that I did, and I was happy that I learned about this copy, as I believe I have pretty much all red label versions of all the other games that I have, and now I have this blue one. And now on to another Sega Genesis game that I have in my collection that's a little bit more expensive than your regular Genesis game. So of course in the last video you saw that I had Musha, which is one of the most expensive Sega Genesis games. It's actually a lot of fun, it's very challenging, it's one of those shoot 'em up style games. Well, this one is a classic that a lot of people remember, and this was actually only on the Sega Genesis. So here we have this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Hyperstone Heist. So this one I remember playing back in the day. Unfortunately, I didn't keep my copy over the years, as I think my mom actually threw away a lot of those games. So of course we have the manual inside, and then we even have this copy of the game. So this is just a great one to add to the collection. Usually goes for over $100 complete. And on the back here I actually have it listed for $44.99. So that is probably the price that I paid for it. Maybe I got a little bit off of this price for this game back then, but still around $40 is just insane to pick this game up for, especially complete in box. So this is one that has definitely went up over time. It's a game that's such a classic, it's a lot of fun. It's really not that rare, but it's more so one of those expensive games, especially when you're trying to complete a set of these games. And then last up we have this PlayStation 1 game that I actually got at a flea market near me. It was one of the game stores around here, and they actually sadly had closed up. So this was one of the last pickups that I got. So this right here is Herc's Adventure. It's actually a really fun game for the PlayStation 1. They did also make it on the Sega Saturn as well. So I'd actually like to get that version as well and see what the difference is. So this one, we have this complete in this jewel case. So this one I noticed is one of the games that has definitely skyrocketed in price. I think when I bought this I got it for less than $30 or so, and now it's just over $100. It just keeps going up. I noticed that a lot with the PlayStation 1 games, which sadly I do not have the best PlayStation 1 collection, and I'd like to really grow it as there are tons of great RPG titles and just other great games on that system. But it's just one that I haven't had very many deals or seem to find very many over the years. So this is one of my more expensive PlayStation 1 titles in my collection. So I had to include that in this video. So as you can tell, there's a little bit more than 10 items in this video. So some of these are just my special mentions in the video, and make sure you guys stay tuned as I will be continuing this series, as every time I go around the room and just look around, clean and tidy some things up and just put some new games away that I had picked up, I actually find tons more that I need to talk about and need to include in these top 10 rare and expensive video games in my collection. So I think I have enough for another video, so make sure you guys stay tuned as I will be doing a third video on this. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link below to my last video so that you guys can check out what my true top 10 rare and expensive games were in my collection, ones that I immediately thought of when making this video. So this is 10 more, well, a little bit more than 10 more of my favorite rare and expensive games in my collection. Just some that are just a little bit more expensive than your average video game. Some that are my most expensive in my collection for certain systems. So they may not be the ultimate rare and expensive games out there, but they're the ones in my collection. So I wanted to share these with you guys. So go ahead and leave some comments below on which games you have never even seen or heard of before that I talked about in this video. Which ones do you need in your collection, and which ones are just some of your all-time favorite games in this video, ones that are just classics that you play all the time. So of course, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Go ahead and check out my other videos and stay tuned for more.